So, Sally Ann, everything changes in this world, doesn't it? And so, how can you become open to change?
I think my learning curve was with dad being in the army. I was moving around a lot as a child, so I was just used to it, and it made me realize when I met people that were on the civilian side that actually that change isn't actually normal. Some people stay in the same city, in the same house, doing the same job, and I couldn't do that personally. But yeah, so I think change is something that you could be open to. If we think about what happened with the pandemic, there was so much uncertainty going on, but these things can crop up in various shapes or form. But being open is more about having that open mindset, being curious about what could or could not happen, also about what the scenarios could look like. I think all of those things just then make you more open and I guess adaptable to
Mhm.
change.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And it wasn't until starting these businesses that I realized that change was can be good. And the biggest thing say in my head is what could happen if it was a positive change rather than going on the negative side. What could
Mm,
happen for the best thing, the best scenario? In my mindset previously for many years, it was always the worst case scenario,
mm,
and and that's how I do it. But it is so important to grasp change. And I know so many people who've still in the same village, still in the same
mhm.
jobs and stuff like that, and that's their life, and that's totally fine. But I've done some amazing things. You mentioned Ibiza there, and I lived in Ibiza, and some people have never been abroad and stuff like that. So it blows my mind. And I know you mentioned you touched on your dad earlier on. Can you give us some information about how grief has changed you?
Yeah, sure. So it was actually 2018. I lost my dad to dementia, which was a journey of grief, really losing him over and over again every year
Mm.
that I would see him, because, as you know, it's a cruel disease that really does wipe them out over the years. But I lost him to dementia in the January, but then I unexpectedly lost my mum in the July that year to heart failure. So, I described the journey of grief there being dad's was expected, so it was more almost like a grey puddle, is how I liken it, whereas mum's was just totally unexpected, and it was almost like walking through thick, sticky tar. It was a very deeply distressing grief journey. But what it does at least tell me now, 6 years on, and it still creeps up on me, is that grief is it's just love, but it can't be passed on anymore.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, and I when we're going through grief, it never leaves us. We just get better at handling that part of the grief, and it just grows and grows and grows. And it's tough, and I'm really sorry for your
Thank
losses
you.
anyway.
Thank you.
But music brings us joy and brings us, like we mentioned before, good memories and bad memories. And this is one of the reasons why I do this show. Ideally, I want to bring out the great emotions, the happy emotions, but we
Mm.
also know that the many times I listened to songs and had a good cry, and you've picked one of these songs in the next slot, right? So we've got Robbie Williams' Angels coming up, and it's not the song itself that makes me emotional. I actually watched the Robbie Williams documentary, about the behind the
I
scenes, and
loved it.
I loved it. But
I loved
also,
it.
I watched that, and I'm a big Take That fan. It's probably my favorite band, especially back then. And it was emotional for me to watch that because you never know what someone's going through anyway, because you just think,
Yeah,
oh, they're superstars. But
yeah.
then, stupidly, I watched his concert live at Nebworth. So it's obviously an older concert at his peak powers back in the 90s, 2000s. And there's one point you stood there and you can see the fear in his eyes. I get emotional
Yeah.
thinking about it now because I've watched this before and I just thought, oh, he's just, because he's just so powerful. He's just got all these, and he wasn't. He was just scared, emotional, felt, why are these people here? And we all have that imposter syndrome, don't we? We have
Yeah.
that imposter
Yeah.
syndrome. And it
Yeah.
made me cry. I was felt so sorry for him because he looked so lost, but he was in front of 1,000 people, all these people, and just so powerful, isn't it? Music.
Well, I will add to that, Bobby. I
Oh
was
no, no,
there.
you're gonna let me cry.
I was actually there at that Nebworth
No.
concert because it was just down the road from where I lived. And you're right, at the time, the person in me 20 plus years ago was thinking, wow, what an incredible superstar. But then watching that documentary, you just realize just how vulnerable he was.
Yeah, and so young, so young. Like I look back at my now of how old I am, and look, if I was doing what he was doing, I don't think I could have done it. I don't know
No.
how he did it. But definitely go and watch the documentary first. I think it's on Disney. I can't remember, or Netflix, and go and Nebworth and Live at Nebworth. And but the cool part about watching that one was there's a few girls got up on stage, obviously, and it just reminded me of the fashion. And I was just like, as if girls used to wear that, but it was just the norm, wasn't it? So it's amazing
Yeah,
how things have changed. And
yeah.
how cool was it to go a bit of that concert? And I remember they were doing it, and also Oasis were doing the same kind of concerts, weren't they, at Nebworth?
Yep, yep, went there too.
Oh,
And you can
jealous.
imagine just like the roads being closed and seeing hundreds of thousands of people just walking along
So good.
roundabouts, because remember the UK is full of roundabouts,
Yes,
and just walking around roundabouts, and you're just thinking, wow, this is a moment in time.
it is a mum, and I don't think anyone's done Nebworth really, because I don't think like music these days doesn't have that same kind of attraction. You know, it was a Britpop era. It was so
Right.
unique, and
Yeah.
especially when you watch that documentary when he was making Angels, he was like, "This is a pile of shit." Like, no, who's going to listen to this? And you just, and again, this is why you never know. This is why you've got to go and give it a go. He had the balls to go and give it a go on his own. He had the balls to go and sing these songs and put it out there. And yes, a lot of people fall on their arse and fail, but the successful people are only successful because they gave it a go. So
Yeah.
introduce your next four songs then.
So we've got Lenny Kravitz, It Ain't Over. We've got Macy Gray, I Try, who I saw last weekend in Brisbane, which was great.
Oh,
Robbie
beautiful.
Williams, Angels, and Seal, Crazy.
Love them all. And we're back after these.